A lot of, Black creators and Black people in general have had to deal with the environment that, me and, other creators have made.
Because if we had the ability to cancel you, you wouldn't have been successful in the first place.
And I totally get Franchesca's feelings of you can't undo 5-10 years of harassment that I've received.
Not being a racist, not being a bigot is the bare minimum. We're not giving out cookies for that.
I want to preface this video with a disclaimer. If you are somebody who innately finds the mention of race or racism agitating, turn this video off and go where the love is, because you are not gonna find it here, babes, and we are being productive today. This is not a drama video. It's not a video about canceling anyone. It's not even a video about railing against white content creators who create platforms doing bigoted content and apologize and or pivot. It's about trying to get to the root of how these platforms come to exist in the first place, why they seem to persist in spite of the communities that they harm, actively telling those creators that it causes harm, and what, if any, material things those creators can do to mitigate the harm they've caused and or at least demonstrate their sincerity so we, as an audience, can better determine who is being genuine and who's just trying to make some kind of leftist rebrand. Because the reality is, this exists, this happens. So what do we do going forward? This is not a video about condemnation. It is about problem solving, and it's about recognizing very real realities, very different kinds of harms and different perspectives and opinions people are entitled to have around harm that is caused. I interviewed iDubbbz, or Ian.
I was being very just generally uncaring.
But before I show you that interview, I need to first give you a little backstory and explain to you why I interviewed him so you have the proper context to view it in. Because again, this is not about him as an individual. He is a case study, which is why I first interviewed Franchesca Ramsey, an amazing writer, comedian, actress, and also somebody that iDubbbz had personally attacked and caused a harassment campaign to wage against her for years. I started thinking about this because I co-host a show called The Leftist Mafia. And a couple of months ago, we had to remove one of our co-hosts, Olurinatti, when substantial evidence was brought to the table to show that she had a history of attacking and harassing every creator that seemed to cross her path. But more than that, we learned that she had done what I like to call the leftist rebrand. It's when white content creators build platforms on what they call edgy but bigoted content. And then after years of causing harm and attacking absolutely anybody who criticized them for it, they simply apologize to their audiences who not only never cared that they did it, loved them precisely because they did it. And that audience, of course, forgives them because it was never their harm to forgive. And they go on business as usual. The problem with these redemption arcs or rebrands, however you choose to characterize it, is that one, you never really know who's being sincere versus just making some kind of pivot for their own financial or professional gain. Two, there are rarely any concrete acts of atonement made to or for the individuals or communities that were actually harmed, and they're usually left entirely out of the conversation. Three, while it does theoretically make sense to want to forgive people for doing something wrong and then recognizing that and wanting to do better, little exploration is had into whether or not giving out that forgiveness so freely incentivizes other white creators to build their platforms this way, knowing they will be excused in the future. And four, little exploration is had into why those creators didn't seem to realize their behavior was apology worthy when the communities they were harming were actively telling them it was. As Franchesca put it,
they will make you a target and they will make you their jumping off point, and they will use bigotry as a come up.
Yes.
And I don't want to be right. It's bittersweet.
Yeah.
But as I'm seeing it happen, I'm like, I said this would happen years ago.
Yes.
Years. Not a month ago, not a week ago, years. Check the receipts. I said this would happen, and it absolutely did.
So while I'd been thinking about all that, I came across this tweet by Franchesca.
I didn't intend on making a video about this, but I'm so angry that I just have to say something and just get it out and let it go. So recently there's been a wave of people who've made bigoted content on the internet coming forward and apologizing. TikTok, we've got Kelly Cagdon. On YouTube, we have iDubbbz, I think is how you say his name. And in years past, we've had Shane Dawson. And all of these people I have different relationships with. So I hosted a show for MTV called MTV Decoded. I actually created the show. I wrote on the show. I hired tons of incredible people and made a lot of great content that I am very proud of. But at the time that the show was on, I dealt with a lot of harassment because of it from these people that labeled themselves anti-social justice warriors, anti-feminists on YouTube, including iDubbbz. And he made a number of videos where he used the N-word fully uncensored, where he put my face in videos and called me, you know, a and, you know, said that my work was cancer, and like my work made him want to kill himself. Most of these videos have been privated, so I can't show them to you, but I've seen them. And he created a culture and a fan base that then harassed me. So did Shane Dawson.
And the caption on the video read, "A response regarding creators who rebrand or outright denounce their past racist or bigoted content via apology video. The culture of harassment and bigotry you've created and profited off is not erased with a sorry or a rebrand." When I looked at the people that she had tagged, I realized that iDubbbz and I followed each other because I attended Creator Clash earlier this year with my friend LOL Overruled. So I went down the rabbit hole, starting with the apology. Which, listen, as far as these apology videos go, it was a better one.
He was so flagrant. And I will say, like, I'm not one to give out cookies. I watched his whole apology video, and I will say, like, in the grand scheme of responses, he did a better job than most. So I'm going to say that he probably had someone advising him, which I don't think is a bad thing. It's probably a smart thing to do. But again, it's just not enough for me. It's not enough for me, and I hope that he's genuinely committed to being a better person. And again, like, I listened to it, and maybe he is, but like,
notably though, in his apology, he singled out only one creator. At first, the only name he singles out to apologize to in this video
is a white woman.
Franchesca, okay, we're right here. We are right.
I mean, you know, I clocked that immediately.
See, I didn't know who she was, so I assumed she was a black woman, right, based on the context of the video.
But did you go down the rabbit hole of how that situation started? I mean, the levels of irony. You apologizing to a white girl for using the N-word, who also used the N-word.
Who used to herself?
Also used the N-word, and you thought that you were gonna check her on using the N-word, but using the N-word.
Also using it.
Come on, we in Inception territory.
But I do think it's a conversation that needs to be had with the centering of whiteness, even within your recognition of wrongness or apology going forward. There's still, not only is there a centering of white women in even the apology or the aftermath, but it's even the center of what I believe drove the desire to go this path. Because I think his audience, what happened is the audience,
they were attacking his wife,
and that is the tea. And that's the tea.
That's when it got real.
and that's what I'm like. So it got real for you when a white woman was hurt, and in the apology, it's only a white woman who is singled out and apologized to, because I'm like, well, you're apologizing for making racist and bigoted content, and yet no black person has been individually named, right?
And to be fair, like, I don't need him to check me by name. I would prefer my name
leave it out of it.
But at the same time, I did similarly to you clock the irony of him devoting a substantial part of that video directly to Tana.
Yes.
And even she's another example of someone who has rebranded, right? Like, she was saying the N-word, she was making this like bigoted content, and then she really kind of moved in a different direction, and that was what he called out, supposedly, that led down that path. So again, it rings hollow for me, especially because I've been on the internet a very long time, and I've watched this happen numerous times, and I've seen people come and go, and the people who are able to remain relevant and the ones who are able to continue to have a platform evolve. And sometimes it is authentically so, and other times it's like, oh my God, I gotta move, I gotta change shit up because they about to cancel me, I'm about to get out of here. And it's like,
I have to set the stage for this kind of video, because when you talk about racism, there are people who just feel personally attacked. They automatically feel like you're making a personal indictment of them, and from that moment forward, they are in defense mode and you are their adversary. Because what they're really hearing is, you think I'm a bad person. You think I consciously decided to be racist. But the reality is a lot more nuanced and a lot less personal than that. The reality is that if you recognize that racism is pervasive in a society, that there is systemic racism, that we are all being raised and educated and indoctrinated in a society that has woven racism and anti-Blackness into our laws, into our media, into our schools, into our every fabric of our institutions, you will internalize and perpetuate racism and anti-Blackness, whether you're aware, whether you consciously set out to be or identify as a racist, whether you're a good person to the people in your life, whether you think you mean well or not, unless you make the conscious decision to recognize and unlearn these things and do better going forward. Although it is often received as such, it is not an innately personal indictment if you are a white person being told that something you do or say is racist. The problem is doubling, tripling, and quadrupling down, taking an utter refusal to hear or consider what entire communities are actively telling you. And it's often worse than just ignoring or refusing to hear those communities that these creators are causing harm to. Often their audiences will attack those communities.
But, you know, again, like, not to give him cookies because it's the bare minimum, but it is very telling that he admitted that this was coming from a place of insecurity.
I am very insecure about my ability to create interesting content or like entertain. And it's one of the reasons why I, kept making this hurtful content. I don't want you to interpret that as an excuse, but I hope that that is relatable to other creators who maybe struggle with the same thing. I'm not confident in my ability to entertain, and I think if I had to rely on my personality to entertain people, that I wouldn't have any amount of success.
Yeah.
Because that was the thing that I picked up on too, where it's like, it's really easy to, and I'm guilty of this too, like I don't participate in, I used to like hate tweet stuff. I'd be like, I hate this show, so let me sit here and talk about it. And it's like, you know what? Even if I don't like the content, they did the work and they put it out in the world. Instead of me doing the same thing, I'm sitting here hating on them and shitting on them when I could be putting this energy into making the thing that I'm actually interested and passionate about. And that's what a lot of these creators that build platforms off of just hating on things, it's like, it's because you can't create anything from scratch. You have to really put yourself out there to have an original idea and put the time and energy into crafting it and building an audience. It's really easy to piggyback on somebody else's work and then just say, well, this sucks. It's like, okay. You literally have not made anything. And so again, it's truly the bare minimum, but him acknowledging that was coming from a place of like, am I actually even funny? Yeah, I believe that. I believe that you didn't know if you were funny without talking shit about other people's work.
I believe that. I 190% believe that. And I think that's actually, when I peel it back, that's actually what was a bigger problem for me when I realized it, because I'm like, me recognizing that in the same way that you recognize that both of us were inclined to give empathy, and both of us were like, I understand the impulse to do this. I understand the impulse to shit on these things. I understand that. But what makes you feel, I think, two things. One, as Black people, we're always being asked of and expected of and held in the place to always have to be compassionate and empathetic to people who are mistreating us, one. But two, it's because we as creators can appreciate what someone else has created and what goes into that, and that makes you have a different kind of respect for that. So it's two levels. We respect on a human level, we empathize because we're humans, and then we empathize as creators. And on no level did he empathize, on none of those levels did he empathize with any of these people, so much so that even in this apology, none of them get singled. Where was it, Jinx? Where were these people? Where was any Jinx? That was the beginning of the end for Jinx's platform, and he's no longer on YouTube. And then I thought about that. That's also a part of it. The reason why you single out the white content creator, in addition to it being a white woman, because she's still here. And
guess what? She was like, come on my podcast. Let's talk. They're just going to use this to then platform each other and continue to like raise their own profile, which is why I'm like, none of this holds water for me because, again, like bars in hell, but the only person that I've really seen take any real measurable responsibility is Jenna Marbles. She said, I'm out. She said, I've built a platform. I've done some things that I'm not proud of. And I think her motivations were twofold. I think she was burnt out on creating content to begin with. I think that was just, the timing was right, but she said, I'm not going to do this anymore. And again, like, I don't think she needs me to accept her apology or anything, but at the same time, I'm like, you're backing up what you're saying. You're like, I've profited off of this. I don't feel good about it, so I'm going to bow out. And to me, it just feels like damage control to make the apology and then just move. Because even he said at one point, he was like, I'm not going to just keep apologizing. I'm not going to keep making content about this. And I was like, yeah, exactly. This is you going, I'm done with this and I never have to think about it again after this. When the reality is you've made millions off of this content. So and
I think that is actually, a place and something that I actually want to discuss, and I will discuss with him, because normally when you have conversations about like reparations, just as a larger conversation in our society, that becomes a harder, more nuanced conversation, because people say, then who, blah blah. Yeah, this is very we know who, we can see, we know who, and we know when. And I'm like, well, you know what, I think, and I'm going to talk to him about this, I think, what is a meaningful step, because I know he said in the video, I am running ads on this video, and I'm going to donate to a foundation or something. The Black people you've harmed, of course, there are far more Black people that have been harmed than just the individual content creators, and that you will have to atone for in some other way, and you probably will not be able to, right? That's just what that is, because you've put that out into the world, and you can't take that back. Once you fester hate and white supremacy, it is what it is. But as far as the individual creators, you know who they are. You go look at the privated videos on the videos, every video you did, every content cop on a Jinx, what you did to you, what you did to all of them, and what was the revenue on those videos, and pay and cut some checks. And
again, he did acknowledge that he has built a career, a successful career, because he's gone on to do other things outside of YouTube. I think he's doing this like boxing series or something like that, and I'm sure he's making tons of money from that. He got that platform off of those videos. He didn't just get the opportunity to sell tickets and do, these big events just because he's a great fighter. No, he got to do that because he built a ginormous audience on YouTube. Right. And I don't know who his wife is. I don't watch her content, but his success has also given her an ability to have a platform, right? Yeah. There's like a trickle down. To your point about reparations, we can see that the content that he created has opened doors for him beyond YouTube. So again, personally, I don't need a check from him. I'm good.
And I love that for you.
But I love that for me too. Honestly, I really do. But at the same time, it's like an apology is not enough for me. Yeah. And I don't think there's anything that he can do that will ever be enough. Yeah. And I think that him and any of these other creators who rebrand, if you genuinely are looking to better yourself, you have to acknowledge and accept that it won't be enough for some people. Yeah. And I'm okay with that. I don't think about you. I don't lose sleep over you. You should be moving forward in a way that's repairing harm and being better every day of your life. Yeah. Because that's the bare minimum. Yeah. Like not being a racist, not being a bigot is the bare minimum. We're not giving out cookies for that.
Thank you so much. I am surprised that you agreed to do it, but very delighted.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to expand my horizons a little bit. 2016 me, probably wouldn't.
Listen, I'm surprised 2023 you were doing it either.
Oh, hell yeah. I appreciate that. I take that as a compliment.
Yeah, listen, I honestly, I want to start off by saying that I very much so respect that you were even trying to take all the accountability and the ownership of it all. I respect that you were even coming over to my side of the internet to come talk about it, because I am very much so a racial investigator, and and people find me to be an intimidating character. So I'm like, and I try to be really transparent because I don't like to ambush people or anything like that. It's not my steez. I don't enjoy it. I don't like stressful content or stressing people out. So that's why I'm like, let me go into it and be as transparent as possible. I want to be as nice as possible without being accused of being too nice, while also being as transparent about what are some of my takeaways and thoughts, and also giving you the opportunity to expound, expand, and let's try work to a good place.
Yeah, you have a very tough job. I don't, I know what you mean. You got to walk a line.
You get it, exactly. So basically, let me tell you the starting, how we ended up here. So, I went to Creator Clash with my boy Alex. And funny enough, he actually had tried to fill me in on the controversy, but I never care about anything. So this is how the conversation went. He invited me to come to Creator Clash. He called me to be like, hey, just so you know, like, there is a little bit of, controversy. He's done some edgy content in the past. And I said, is edgy white people speak for racist? And he said, yes. And I said, okay. And I said, all right. And that was all my, because listen, I'm of the mindset, we live in America. We live in a racist society. We live in these kinds of things. I am not putting it on you as an individual or anything like that. And I don't really want to take an individualistic approach to trying to nail you to the cross. I more so just want to see different things, and I think patterns that we can unpack, and maybe it could make it better for some people to understand what are issues Black people have with certain content or going forward in these kinds of things, right? So that's kind of where I'm coming from. So I saw the apology, watched the whole video, and I texted both Alex and my editor, and I said, this is the best of them I've seen as far as apology videos and seeing content creators throughout the years and actors, famous people, public figures make apologies. I thought it was the most accountable I've ever seen it be. So I want to give you all the credit for that.
That's great to hear. For me, it's been a huge relief because I think for me, it's like, even though I was taking a stance on, using slurs and, being very just not wanting to be responsible for how other people felt. Me existing in the world and, trying to, live outside of my bedroom at home. I found it to be very challenging to interact with people without feeling some amount of guilt of have you seen my videos? How would you interpret what I've said? And, how uncomfortable have I made you? And it interaction after interaction, it kind of added up to me saying something needs to be said. At least.
And I feel that, and I understand that, and I very much so am glad that you at least even came to that spot, because that's more than most ever do. But what I guess I wonder is, why not then? Because the trend I've realized very often, I see this in the space a lot, is a tendency for white content creators to be called out for things present day that were racist and bigoted then. But there were always Black people and people present and marginalized people telling them that then. Why not hear it when they say it?
I think generally, I think for me, it was, a sort of a policy or a just very black and white thinking. As soon as because for me, I think it's about caring about how other people are feeling, period. Not necessarily just marginalized people. I think I personally had an issue with caring about people's feelings at all, because I felt as soon as I would open that door, then I felt like I would be a lot less safe to do and say whatever I wanted. And now that's kind of an in, I guess, for people to criticize, or an in for people to because I'm essentially exposing myself as I'm now thinking about how other people are feeling, but I guess to your point, I don't have any Black friends. I have some friends who are people of color, but it's never, I grew up in Southern California, and I'm certain if I grew up around more Black people, I wouldn't have felt nearly as comfortable saying the things that I was saying. And I think the more interactions that I've had with Black content creators, and just regular everyday people, the more I've realized this matters.
So And I don't say this as an indictment. I say this as a transparent thing that we would all realize. And I appreciate your answer, because I think your answer allows me to like more clearly parse that out as didn't care. And I don't mean that in a, but didn't care. These are not people that you, and that was something I think kind of struck me, right? Because in watching your video, a thing I wanted to ask you about was, how come Tana, of all the, you only singled out one person to apologize to? Why her?
I think because I kind of just took it to like another level. Because I think a lot of commentary channels, they can feel very comfortable and justified in speaking about a variety of topics because they're not like in person harassing people, and a lot of them are avoiding saying like the slurs, like I was saying. They're keeping it to like a certain level where they look around their community and they're saying like, well, I'm not doing anything like that polarizing. I'm kind of I'm riding the line a little bit more. And I think for Tana specifically, she was, I think, the youngest person I've made a video about. And I don't know, it was just, she was also in, I think the worst part about it is going to her meetup, because she was in what would feel like a safe space. She's already putting herself out there at a meet and greet. I wouldn't even do meet and greets. She was doing a meet and greet, and I jump scared her, and who knows what my intentions were. She had no idea. No one there knew what my intentions were, and that's a scary situation to be in. That's horrible.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely valid. You're right. There is a fair situation to that, and that makes me think of, so Franchesca Ramsey, who I have spoken with, she tells us a story about being terrified in the airport when she runs into one of your fans.
When I encountered one of his fans in the airport, I had to ask myself, am I going to exit this conversation and continue to have my life? You know what I mean? Like, my life could be in danger, right?
Yeah.
And so, again, that's why when there's all of these conversations about don't call me a Karen and don't call me white and don't call me racist. It's like when those names are used, your feelings are hurt. But when someone calls me the N-word, I have to wonder, is this person going to try and kill me? Am I going to lose my life right now?
Who comes up there and says, I watch and I know you from IDubbbz's videos, and the fear she felt in not knowing what this person is for her. And I think why I asked the Tana question is this, and I think you're right to apologize to Tana. I don't think you're wrong to apologize to Tana. I think what I really want to unpack is the decision to apologize her exclusively, because if you watch that video as someone like me who didn't watch your content and who isn't familiar of the larger array, you would think that this is the only person, or maybe the way I read it was, okay, he's been in trouble for using this kind of language and racial slurs and all of this, but the only person he individualizes is a white woman. And he says, he apologizes maybe to the Black community in large, and it would lead you to believe that no Black person was individually picked on or targeted, and that's not the case. And I think what I find interesting is that even in apologizing for doing racist things, a white woman is who was apologized to, as though there weren't Black people who were called the N-word. And I wonder, because that took me down a rabbit hole of watching, videos, and I saw a content cop you did on Jinx.
On camera.
You don't get a break in the beginning. No resting. 100% 24/7 grind.
Damn, this nigga's on the grind. That shirt shouldn't say, it's about that time. It should say, it's about that grind. 4 videos a day, non-stop editing. I'm like an animator. I put so much work into my videos. I'm like sitting there keyframe after keyframe, trying to figure out how to put this fucking video on the corner of my screen. Grind, mad grind. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, nothing but grind. I'm on the grind. My house, this ain't a normal house. This a grind house.
You gotta eat, sleep, and shit, YouTube.
You gotta suck dick and shit, YouTube. Oh, this is so motivational. Holy shit. Oh, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it right now. I'm gonna sit on my bed. I'm gonna sit on the end of my bed. I'm gonna set up the camera, and I'm gonna watch some fucking videos. Fuck editing. Fuck that shit. What am I, a faggot? Dude, are you gonna edit your video? No, what do I look fucking gay?
And I wonder why a Jinx wouldn't receive an apology, because I think and I credit you for this in your apology. I actually did really like this, the part where you acknowledge, I didn't feel comfortable in my own ability to be funny, or my own ability and my own personality, or whatever it is. And so I leaned on this, and I get that. And because on some level, on a human level, I understand things, but on a content creator, on a public figure level of making things, I understand what it is to have insecurities, and I respect, I think it's big to admit that. But on the other level, I think to myself, well, did you know that then, right? Are you aware now of this insecurity, or did you know it then? And if so, why is the same not grace shown to a person like Jinx when you decide to make a content cop about them? And, basically what you're honing in on is saying is they're untalented, or there isn't work that goes into their videos, right? Why isn't it sufficient enough to have your platform, right? You already have your platform that is in some way being boosted and made on this kind of bigoted content. That's one thing, to exist in that space, but to not allow this other Black creator to exist. And in the same way, you call these Black people themselves the N-word, but they aren't singled out in the apology. And I wonder why it is that that's the case. Love it.
They can't stand to see us. And this is not just exclusive to Black people. This is marginalized people, period. This is what you're seeing happening during Pride, right? This idea that if I think you are less than me, how dare you like yourself? Exactly. How dare you be happy? How dare you be successful?
Yes.
When throughout history, I've been told that my whiteness and me doing the bare minimum is the standard.
Yes.
And now y'all taking my jobs, you taking my views, you out here taking my partners. Like you are living the life that I'm supposed to have.
Yes.
And I'm just minding my business.
Well, I think Jinx specifically, I think all of these creators, to varying degrees, that I've made content cop videos on, I think they deserve their own apology in their own way. I think Jinx is definitely one of them. I think the type of content he was making, in the same way that I felt, I guess it wasn't necessarily that, Jinx making reaction content, like, nowadays that's like, it's commonplace, right? So, he, in a lot of ways, initiated that trend. And I think, the content I was making, it was just, it was cheap, I think, in kind of the same way that some people can view reaction content as cheap. So I think in a lot of ways I am guilty of what I was criticizing Jinx for. I was being very, just generally uncaring. And like I said, I was insecure about my ability to entertain. And I think, Jinx deserves his own apology, and I'm open to personally talking to Jinx, or whatever he might be open to.
I mean, because listen, I think I don't think it's that there's an aversion to forgiving you, right? Like if I think of myself as a proxy representative for the Black community right now, I don't think it's that anybody has the aversion to forgiving you. I think it's the recognition that it doesn't matter whether we do or don't. Because if we had the ability to cancel you, you wouldn't have been successful in the first place. Because Black people have a problem with you now, had a problem with you then. They were just being ignored. And so similarly, what I think is the thing that I really want to unpack is this, is that you're allowed to apologize, whether or not you don't or you do come forward. And I appreciate the approach that you've taken and that you've chosen to on your own without a larger controversy be forced to. But the thing is, what I noticed when I went down the deep dive is most of the Black people that you did single out are no longer making YouTube videos. They're no longer content creating in one way or the next. They've in some way been run off the platform or been terrified through years of harassment. Franchesca was harassed so much that it's a part of her Wikipedia page is that she's went through a series of harassment. And I think that's what's notable to me, because I watched Tana's response to your apology, and she talks about how she also respected it and how she would be open to a world where she talked to you, and how she herself has been canceled and her different pivots. And I think that is the thing that really is the ire of the community, and seeing that is that you have the ability to make a platform on bigoted content, attack a black content creators doing similar things, or basically target them as not talented or not this or whatever it is, and essentially run them off the platform. But white content creators, even the ones guilty of doing those things, are able to pivot. And I think that's the thing that worries people, and like something I've been mulling over and how to go about this, because sometimes you worry that well, if I say it's okay, or if you forgive people, then it incentivizes other people to do the same. Like, what is to say there aren't going to be, because it happens all the time, of people saying, I want to do something and I don't think I have the talent to do it. I don't think I have this. So let me make my platform on punching down, and I will be able to at a later date say sorry and move on.
I think that's an extremely valid fear, and I think that's kind of from what I heard from Franchesca, that's really frustrating, and I don't think it's fair. I think, it's good for people to change, obviously. I think the level that, I would say the response that I've gotten anywhere from, one end of the spectrum where like commentary channels are saying like, I don't think he has any reason to apologize, to like maybe Franchesca Ramsey at the other end saying like, this isn't like even close to being enough. Because a lot of, Black creators and Black people in general have had to deal with the environment that, me and, other creators have made. And so, I think that entire range of reaction is appropriate. And so, I mean, for me, it's sort of expected, right? Because I think a lot of the people who say that I shouldn't have apologized or something like that, they are so far from like arriving to where I'm at. And I totally get Francesca's feelings of like, you can't like undo 5-10 years of harassment that I've received. So I get it. I wish, all I can think of, at this point is to communicate my headspace and like where I was at the time and how I came to terms with like understanding like my role and responsibility in our community, and just like communicate to that to people, because that's as close as I can get to like undoing things or like fixing things.
And how did you, like, when you made the final decision that you were going to make the video, like that this is it, like what happened there?
I think there's been a lot of things. I think number one, I think like doing this whole creator clash thing has opened my eyes to it in a big way. I think I've had to interact with, boxing is a community that has a lot of marginalized people in it. There are a lot of Black people in boxing, Mexicans. I mean, it is super popular around the world, and
my dad loves boxing.
I mean, it's so I've had to interact with different people than the usual small bubble of like commentary YouTubers on YouTube. Like, that's very small. They're coming from like the same world that I come from, and it just makes my confidence in a lot of these ideas that I've developed over the years be like less and less confident in them, because it's like, oh, holy shit, like these are real people, and they're as fucking compassionate, and I don't know, it's just,
I get it. I mean, I went to boarding school in West Virginia, and I was the only Black girl in my senior class. So I have been people's first, many a white person's first introduction to a Black person that in any way departed from a caricature or a stereotype they had in their mind. And I think, listen, I actually think you're in a better position than most if you think about it, because you're not the only white person. There are tons of white people, even the ones I'm sure condemning you, guilty of similar behavior, or at the very least being complicit on the spectrum of racism. So you're not alone. You're in a country full of company, right? So that's not. So in that respect, very often, I think, when we talk about racism, all kind of white people, if they were able to, if there were video logs of their platform or how they've lived their life, I'm sure they have a community of Black people who would be upset, or who they've wronged, or they've fostered attitudes and things too. But they don't have the benefit, I think, in your case, you actually do have the benefit of knowing who and what. Like, you can't contain, once you spread like toxicity, you can't spread what your audience does. You can only try to course correct, and I respect that you are doing that, right? So you can't do anything about whatever Black people were on the receiving end of, who your audience members or those things. But you do know which individual Black people, that you made content cops about, or that you singled out, and you know what those videos made in revenue. You have the ability to look at these things, and I think you do have a way to definitively, concretely do some things. And especially let me tie it back to you earlier saying you have no Black friends. And listen, even if you didn't tell me that, I knew that. I went to create a clash. So I knew. But I think there is a way to change that. You know what I mean? If you're a person, if you have the benefit, whether we like it or not, of, I can't crush your platform, nobody else can either. You're gonna have one. You're gonna still have this audience. So if you have the benefit, your white privilege is that you have the ability to maintain your platform and continue to grow. I think a way that you step forward, a way you atone that, is to change the lack of the way the Black people's platforms that you brought down. Bring some Black people's platforms up. You know what I mean? Or help. And listen, in some respect, I will consider your presence here, you taking the step in to getting on the Black side of the internet. But I do think that is a way you can concretely do something. Like, take a look at the privated videos or whatever videos it is where you targeted whatever content creators, and look and see how much did that make, or what was this, and like sit down and try to like piece by piece, what can we do about this? How can we reach out to these folk? And I think that can that shows some kind of material step, like, you know what, I acknowledging that it's not just that you built your platform off of, some bigoted content, because that's not innately the problem. It's that you also destroyed Black platforms. And so I think that's where a good place for you to kind of move forward. And that was an idea I wanted to bring to you. Yeah,
I appreciate that. I think that's a good idea. And I'm going to take your advice on that. I think I was going to go on Tana's podcast.
Yeah.
What is your? I guess I'm curious what your thoughts on doing that would be.
I think you can do that. I don't think that there is a problem with you doing that, especially if that's somebody you singled out and you did do something there. And like I said, I don't think you're wrong to apologize to or acknowledge a dangerous element or that. I don't think that will warm the hearts of the communities, the particular marginalized communities they feel impacted by, because I think they're still going to feel like the narrative will still be that a white woman was centered in all of this, and that ultimately you're apologizing for saying a racial slur, a Black racial slur to a white lady. So I don't think you're wrong to do it. I think you can do multiple things. In the same way that you could sit down and talk to me, I think you can sit down and talk to Tana. So I think that's fine. I don't think you have to take that out of your lexicon, but I think the same way you've made these are bold steps. Like I said, I want to give credit to that. Most people are not sitting down with me, okay? People are scared of me on a regular, even in court, okay? So, I think it's just about you saying now, hey, maybe let me see how I reach out to a Jinx, or at the very least, even if because a lot of these people may not be receptive to talking to you. I know Franchesca don't care to speak to you or anything like that, but I think there's a way that you can change a narrative. Like what I saw a lot when I was watching, there was a video, that's why I figured I watched a whole video on the end of Jinx's career, right? And that begins with content cop is the beginning of the end for Jinx. And even because of an audience, we know this, being on Twitter, the popular opinion is who's got the biggest audience, right? Or who's the winner, or who's still standing. And so because you're the one that's still standing and Jinx has been run off the platform, the audience's perspective is like, he was stupid, he was prideful, he should have. I'm like, yeah, he's calling him every kind of N-word and you're mad at the man because he's upset. But I think there's a way that we can speak up for people, that you could say, hey, you know what? I actually was wrong, you know what I mean? Or that wasn't, that's not the right perspective to happen, because so much public perception changes whether or not we're able to succeed. And changing the public perception on Jinx is what killed him. So I think there's also a way that you can just kind of walk back some of these things, and maybe recognize the humanity that you didn't recognize in them then, recognize it now. Because think about if you felt the way you felt and all the things that you're going through, but your platform was gone. Yeah. So I think that's a way. I think
absolutely. Well, I mean, I don't know to the extent like how much of this footage you plan on using for your video, but yeah, I did find out a couple months ago that Jinx has me blocked on Twitter. So if Jinx does come across this video, I'll see if there's an email or something. But let it be known, I'm down to speak with you and even do it all publicly, or whatever he'd like.
And I love that. Listen, I love that. The defense attorney in my heart. When I stumbled on the Jinx thing, I was like, listen, I'm years behind. I didn't know nothing about Jinx in 2015 of all of this, but I was like, he does not know it wherever he is in the world, but justice for Jinx. I was like, so I'm glad. And I'm really glad that you sat down with me. Is there anything in particular? I want to make sure that you're able to like say whatever you say, because I think this is the closest you're going to get to talking directly to Cornbread Tube. So, you don't know Cornbread Tube? Have you never heard that?
No, I haven't. I was like, what is that?
Oh, Brad Tube is the video essayist space, right? The general video essays, and Cornbread Tube is the black video essayist space.
Okay. Yeah. I've heard of Bread Tube, Cornbread Tube. That's funny. I like that.
Yes, you get it. If there's anything you wanted to say to them directly, please, this is your moment.
Oh, I mean, maybe I'd have more to say if I was like familiar, but is there... Is there like more? Is there any like?
That's where everybody is. All of the cat blacks, or that's where.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So that's our side of it.
I guess I'll just say, like, out of the, I've watched. I mean, I tend to want to stay away from a lot of the reaction videos to like my apology and stuff. Because mentally it's just tough to deal with.
Yeah.
But there have been a few that I've watched fully, and Cat Black is one of the videos that I watched, and I mean, I would say out of any of the reactions to watch, in my opinion, it would be Cat Black's response, because she definitely comes from, obviously a perspective of, being someone this apology might be appropriate for. And she essentially says like, hey, I'm probably not going to watch, I'm not like an iDubbbz fan or anything. I'm probably not going to watch any of his videos going forward. But I at least feel a little bit more safe if he's like at a convention or we pass by each other or whatever. Like I'm not going to immediately dismiss him as like the racist guy or whatever. And that's, to be honest, like all I'm, all I could ask for in that case.
Good. Well, I appreciate that I really appreciate that you sat down. I appreciate the willingness to own it, because like I said, it's just true. It's not just true about you. Like, I have my own white friends. We know. We can call them up, be like, "Ooh, Mark, that was racist." He'd be like, "Oh, my fault." And you course correct. The only way that you can fix a problem is if you acknowledge it exists. We all have biases and prejudices, and I can't rake you over the coals for what's been done. But what I wanted to do was maybe explain to you, I was like, what, if I seem to have a path or an ability to talk to him, let me give you some of my thoughts, and maybe that helps you better understand where the community comes from, and maybe other people listening to it and watching it that are open to that can get it too, and we can maybe do something better about how we deal with these pivots, these apologies.
I super appreciate it. I think the you bringing up Jinx and other black creators that have been affected, I think is very appropriate. And I think you're right. I think he was, I think, the first person I did a Content Cop video on, and it's been a long time since then. And you're right, like a lot of these, I'm thinking about like Keemstar and even Rice Gum, like all of these guys have like been kind of continued to like push on, because they are, I don't know, they're like cockroaches of YouTube. They just continue to like make content, whether it be drama or anything else. So I think it's easy to forget those who disappear off the internet and generally neglected. So I appreciate that. And also, if you if you ever need to get a white guy's perspective on who's definitely like been there, I'm always available.
Thank you so much, Ian. I'm glad this went well. I believe it or not, I was a little bit nervous.
I mean, I'm trying. I was nervous too.
Black women I'm glad. Scary. Listen. Raheem hasn't made an appearance in a while. I thought y'all needed some wholesome content for all this stressful or heavy stuff. Hi, Hemi. Say hi to the Olurinatti. This is my son, first of his name. Ooh.